The stars had watched humanity for thousands of years, but the Valanthe hegemony only noticed them when Earth's first faster-than-light ship crossed into their space. The small vessel called the Wanderer carried 23 crew members and a message of peace. Captain Elena Vasquez had trained her whole life for this moment. She stood on the bridge with her hands behind her back, watching the alien ships approach on the view screen. "They're scanning us," said Lieutenant Chen from the sensor station. "I count 12 vessels, all larger than us." Elena nodded. "Open communication channels. Let's introduce ourselves." The message they sent was simple. Humanity wanted friendship. They wanted to trade knowledge and learn about the galaxy. They came in peace. The Valanthe response came 3 hours later. It was not words but weapons. The first plasma burst hit the Wanderer's engine section. The ship shook so hard that Elena fell from her chair. Alarms screamed through every corridor. Fire broke out in the cargo bay. The second and third shots destroyed their shields completely. "Return fire," asked her weapons officer, blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. "No," Elena said. "This has to be a mistake. Send another message. Tell them we mean no harm." The fourth shot killed the communications array. The fifth opened the hull to space. Elena watched her crew die around her. She watched the oxygen escape into the cold void. She watched the stars through the holes in her ship's body. In her final moments, she managed to activate the emergency beacon. It would send everything back to Earth. Every sensor reading, every image, every death. The Valanthe ships moved closer. They watched the human vessel break apart. They collected pieces of the wreckage for study. They found the bodies floating in space and took those too. Commander Zalth of the Valanthe fleet sent his report to the Hegemony Council. He described the primitive ship and its weak weapons. He noted that the creatures inside had strange, soft bodies with red blood. They died easily. They were no threat. The council read his report and made a decision. These humans came from a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. The Hegemony had encountered many such species before. Some they conquered, some they destroyed, some they simply ignored until they faded away. High Counselor Verath looked at the images of Earth sent by their long-range scanners. He saw the cities and the oceans and the billions of life signs. He calculated the resources the planet could provide. He thought about the labor force those billions could become. "Send a conquest fleet," he ordered. "Standard pacification protocol. Break their resistance quickly and install collection centers. I want this planet producing for the Hegemony within 1 rotation cycle." The conquest fleet assembled near the Valanthe homeworld. 100 warships with crews that had destroyed dozens of civilizations. They practiced no caution. They felt no worry. The humans were primitive. This would be simple. On Earth, the emergency beacon's message arrived 3 weeks after the Wanderer's destruction. It played on every government's screens. Every leader watched Captain Elena Vasquez's final transmission. "They attacked without warning," her recorded voice said, broken by static. "We came in peace and they killed us. If anyone receives this, know that we tried. We tried to be friends. Tell my family I love them." The images that followed showed everything. The plasma fire, the bodies, the alien ships moving in to collect what remained. Earth had never been truly united before that day. Nations that had fought for centuries suddenly found common ground. The anger was universal. The grief was shared. The desire for justice became a single voice from 8 billion throats. President Morrison of the United Earth Council addressed the planet. "We sent our best people to the stars with open hands. They were murdered for their kindness. We do not know why. We do not understand what kind of creatures would do this. But we will learn, and we will respond." The human war machine activated. Every factory capable of building ships began working day and night. Every scientist dedicated themselves to understanding and improving the technology from the Wanderer. Every soldier volunteered for the new Space Force. But the humans knew they were not ready. They had one FTL-capable ship and it had been destroyed. Their enemies had hundreds, perhaps thousands. Earth needed time. They did not get it. The Velanthe Conquest fleet arrived in Earth's solar system 2 months later. They came out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter, a standard approach that kept them away from any planetary defenses. Commander Zalth was again leading the mission. He had been rewarded for destroying the human scout ship. "Scan the inner planets," he ordered. "Find their population centers." His sensor officer worked for several minutes. "Commander, I detect significant activity in orbit around their homeworld. Many new vessels under construction. Ground-based energy signatures have increased dramatically." Zalth dismissed the concern with a wave of his long, scaled arm. Primitive species always panic when faced with conquest. Their efforts are meaningless. They cannot match our technology in such a short time. Proceed to standard assault positioning. The fleet moved inward. They passed Mars and its small human research stations. They destroyed these stations without slowing. The humans inside sent emergency signals before they died. Earth received every message. Admiral James Stone stood in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. He was 73 years old and had fought in 3 wars. He had never lost, but looking at the tactical display, he felt true fear for the first time. 100 warships, said his aide, Colonel Rita Patel. All larger than anything we have, all better armed. "What do we have?" Stone asked. 15 attack satellites in orbit, 37 modified aircraft capable of reaching low orbit, 6 prototype warships, none of them properly tested, and every nuclear weapon on the planet. Stone nodded slowly. "It won't be enough to win." "No, sir. But it might be enough to hurt them, to make them remember what they did here." Colonel Patel stood straighter. "Yes, sir, that it might do." Stone opened a channel to every military installation on Earth. "All stations, this is Admiral Stone. The enemy will reach Earth orbit in approximately 6 hours. We cannot defeat them today, but we can bleed them. We can make them pay for every inch of our sky. We fight not for victory but for vengeance. Make your ancestors proud." Stone out. The Velanthe fleet approached Earth with confidence. They had done this many times before. Break the defenses, destroy the military centers, land troops to suppress the population, extract resources, simple and efficient. They did not understand what vengeance meant to humans. They did not know about the Spartans at Thermopylae, fighting to the last man. They did not know about the defenders of Masada or the soldiers at Stalingrad. They did not know that humans considered dying for a cause to be the highest honor. They were about to learn. The first wave of human defenders rose to meet the alien fleet. 37 pilots in jury-rigged spacecraft with weapons designed for other purposes. They knew they would not survive. They went anyway. Captain Sarah Webb led the formation. She had been a fighter pilot for 20 years. She had a husband and 2 daughters waiting in a bunker in Kansas. She had said goodbye to them that morning. "All wings, this is Webb. We have one job, take as many of them with us as we can. Make it count, let's go." They charged into the alien fleet. The first battle for Earth lasted 3 hours. It ended with the complete destruction of humanity's orbital defenses. Every attack satellite was gone. Every prototype warship was debris. Every pilot who had risen to fight was dead. Captain Sarah Webb's spacecraft had rammed directly into a Velanthe cruiser's engine section. The explosion had destroyed both vessels. She took 87 alien crew members with her. Her final transmission was just 2 words: "For Elena." Commander Zalth watched the battle's conclusion from his flagship. He had expected quick victory, and he had achieved it. But something bothered him, something about the way the humans had fought. "Damage report," he ordered. His officer hesitated. "Commander, we lost 6 vessels." 6, Zalth turned sharply. Explain how primitives destroyed 6 of our ships. They used ramming tactics extensively. Several of their pilots detonated their own fusion cores when their weapons failed. One of their orbital platforms self-destructed when we attempted to board it, killing our entire landing party. Zalth was quiet for a long moment. No species in hegemony records had ever fought like this. Conquest usually broke enemy morale. Defenders surrendered when they saw they could not win. These humans had known from the start they would die, and they attacked anyway. Continue the assault, he ordered. Begin ground bombardment of military installations. The plasma fire rained down on Earth. Military bases burned. Cities close to those bases suffered too. Millions died in the first hours. The humans could not stop the bombardment. Their remaining weapons could not reach orbit. But Admiral Stone had planned for this. While the orbital battle raged, he had been moving pieces on the board that the Valanthi could not see. Project Vengeance is ready, Colonel Patel reported. Stone looked at the destruction on his screens. Seattle was burning. Beijing was burning. Lagos was burning. His world was dying, and there was nothing he could do to stop it today. Launch it, he said. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a submarine surfaced. It was the USS Retribution, the newest and most secret vessel in Earth's fleet. Its mission was not to fight. Its mission was to run. Captain Marcus Cole commanded the Retribution. His crew numbered 112, all volunteers who knew they would never return to Earth. Their ship carried no weapons. Instead, it carried something far more dangerous, all of humanity's knowledge about the Valanthi, gathered from the Wanderer's final transmission and observed during the battle. FTL drive is charged, his engineer reported. Course plotted for the hegemony's nearest colony world, his navigator added. Cole looked at his crew one final time. They were afraid. They should be. But they were also determined. We go now to learn everything about our enemy, Cole said. We go to find their weaknesses. We go to prepare humanity's revenge. This is not retreat. This is the beginning of their end. The Retribution jumped to faster-than-light speed and vanished from Earth's solar system. Commander Zalth's sensors detected the jump but dismissed it as unimportant. One small ship running away was meaningless. The planet was his. The ground invasion began that night. Valanthi landing craft descended on every continent. Their troops were tall, scaled, and cold-blooded in both body and mind. They had conquered 100 worlds. They expected fear and submission. They found something else. In the ruins of Chicago, a teenage girl named Maya Torres crawled through rubble with a hunting rifle her grandfather had given her. She had watched her parents die when the bombardment started. She had been crying then. She was not crying now. A Valanthi patrol passed her hiding spot. 6 soldiers in powered armor, each carrying weapons that could level buildings. Maya waited until the last one passed, then fired. The bullet found a gap in the armor's joint. The alien fell. The others turned, confused. Before they could react, Maya had disappeared into the smoke. Across the world, similar scenes played out. An old man in Moscow used a construction crane to drop concrete blocks on a landing craft. A group of children in Sao Paulo lured aliens into a building their older siblings had rigged with explosives. A farmer in India drove his tractor, loaded with fertilizer bombs, into an alien supply depot. The humans were dying by the millions, but they refused to submit. They refused to become slaves. They refused to let their killers feel safe for even one moment. Commander Zalth received reports throughout the night. Isolated attacks, improvised weapons, suicide tactics. His casualties were mounting in ways the hegemony had never experienced. This makes no sense, he told his officers. We have demonstrated our superiority. Why do they continue fighting? None of his officers had an answer. The hegemony's wars had always followed patterns: show strength, break will, accept surrender, These humans followed no pattern. They fought when they should flee. They died when they should surrender. They smiled when they should despair. A human prisoner was brought before Zalth. The man was wounded, bleeding from cuts on his face and arms. His hands were bound. 2 Valanthi guards held him upright. "You will tell me about your people's defenses," Zalth ordered through his translation device. The man laughed. It was not a frightened laugh or a mad laugh. It was the laugh of someone hearing a joke. "You want to know about our defenses," the man said. "Here's what you need to know. You killed Elena Vasquez. You killed her crew. You came to our home and murdered our people. There is no force in this galaxy that will stop us from destroying everything you love." Zalth leaned closer. "You are beaten. Your fleets are gone. Your cities burn. You have nothing." "We have vengeance," the man said, "and that's more powerful than anything in your arsenal." Zalth ordered the prisoner executed, but the words stayed with him. He could not understand them. His species conquered for resources and power. They fought when victory was possible and retreated when it was not. This concept of vengeance, this willingness to fight without hope of winning, was alien to him. Far from Earth, the retribution arrived at a Valanthi colony world. Captain Cole kept his ship hidden in the shadow of a moon, watching and recording. He saw the alien cities. He saw their ships. He saw their weaknesses. "Note everything," Cole ordered. "Communication frequencies, patrol patterns, population centers, shield configurations. We're going to need all of it." His crew worked without rest. They were humanity's eyes in enemy territory now. Every piece of information could save billions of lives in the war to come. Back on Earth, the Resistance had found a rhythm. Humans could not win in open combat, so they did not fight openly. They hid. They watched. They struck when the enemy did not expect it. They died, but they took aliens with them. 3 months after the invasion began, Commander Zalth sent a troubling report to High Counselor Verath. "The conquest is proceeding slower than anticipated. Human resistance continues despite overwhelming force. Recommend requesting additional troops and extending the operation timeline." Verath read the report with annoyance. How can one primitive species cause such delay? "Their psychology is unusual," Zalth explained. "They do not respond to standard pacification techniques. Demonstrations of power increase their resistance rather than decrease it. I have never encountered a species like this." Verath considered the situation. The hegemony had a reputation to maintain. They could not appear weak by struggling with primitives. "I am sending 20 additional warships," Verath said. "I am also sending Specialist Korth. He has methods for breaking difficult species. Use whatever force necessary. End this quickly." Specialist Korth arrived 2 weeks later. He was old for a Valanthi, his scales faded to gray. He had spent his life learning how to break the will of conquered peoples. He was very good at his job. His method was simple: make examples, choose a population center, destroy it completely. Let the survivors tell others what happened. The fear would spread. The resistance would crumble. He chose a city called Denver. It had been a center of human resistance. Thousands of fighters had operated from its ruins. The bombardment lasted for 1 hour. When it ended, nothing remained. 1 million humans died. Their ashes mixed with the snow that fell that night. Korth expected terror. He expected surrender. Instead, the attacks tripled. Every human on the planet now fought with a fury that made their previous resistance look gentle. They created new weapons from scraps. They found new ways to kill. They did not stop to mourn. They channeled their grief into violence. Admiral Stone, still alive in his bunker, received word of Denver's destruction. He sat alone for several minutes. Then he opened communications to every resistance cell on Earth. "They think they can break us with death," he said. "They do not understand. Every person they kill becomes a reason for us to fight harder. Every city they burn becomes a promise we make to our children. We will survive this. And when we are strong enough, we will come for them. Not to conquer, not for resources, for vengeance. Remember Denver, remember the Wanderer, remember and fight. The speech spread across the planet. It was translated into every language. It was whispered in shelters and screamed in battles. It became humanity's anthem of resistance. And far away, on a dozen colony worlds, Captain Cole and the crew of the Retribution continued their work. They had been watching and learning for months. They had mapped the hegemony's trade routes and identified their key worlds. They had discovered that the Valanthi had enemies, other species they had conquered who still remembered freedom. The humans were not ready to fight back yet, but they were getting closer. With every passing day, they learned more. With every passing day, their anger grew colder and sharper, like a blade being forged. The Valanthi had started a fire they did not understand, and they were only beginning to feel its heat. 5 years had passed since the invasion of Earth. The Valanthi still held humanity's homeworld, but they did not control it. The resistance had never stopped. Every day brought new attacks, new casualties, and new problems for the occupation force. Commander Zalth was dead now, killed by a human bomb hidden in what appeared to be food supplies. Specialist Korth had fled back to the hegemony after 3 of his personal guards were assassinated in a single night. The occupation had cycled through 7 military governors. None lasted more than a year. But the real changes were happening far from Earth. Captain Marcus Cole and his crew had spent 5 years moving through hegemony space. They had gathered intelligence, made contacts, and planted seeds of rebellion. They had found the Valanthi's darkest secret, the conquered species they kept as slaves. The Korthar were one such species. They had been conquered 300 years ago. Their people worked in mines and factories across hegemony space. They were beaten, starved, and killed for disobedience. They had forgotten hope. Until the humans came. Cole met secretly with a Korthar elder named Gorvan on a mining world at the edge of hegemony territory. The meeting place was a storage room deep underground, away from Valanthi sensors. "You are different from our masters," Gorvan said. His voice was rough from years of breathing toxic mining fumes. "You do not speak of power or resources. You speak of something else." "Vengeance," Cole said. "The Valanthi killed our people. They burn our cities. They think they have conquered us. But we will destroy them for what they have done." Gorvan studied the human with old, tired eyes. "We once thought such things. We once dreamed of fighting back. But we learned that the hegemony is too strong. They have crushed 100 rebellions." Cole nodded. "They crushed those rebellions because each species fought alone. Humans don't intend to fight alone. We're building something new, an alliance of every species the hegemony has wronged." "An alliance?" Gorvan's voice held doubt and a tiny spark of something else. "Such a thing has never existed." "It will now. The Valanthi created thousands of enemies when they conquered world after world. They just never expected those enemies to work together." The Korthar did not agree that day, but they did not refuse either. Cole left them with communication devices and instructions. When the time came, they would hear the call. Similar meetings happen across hegemony space. The Retribution and 2 other ships that had escaped Earth visited dozens of worlds. They found the Veth, whose warriors had been slaughtered and whose survivors labored in Valanthi shipyards. They found the Mekrani, a race of engineers whose technology the hegemony had stolen and whose people now lived in slums. They found the Orath, the Killinth, the Sunari, dozens of species, all with reasons to hate the Valanthi. To each the humans brought the same message: vengeance is coming, be ready. On Earth, Admiral Stone had died 3 years into the occupation. He was 80 years old and his heart simply stopped during a strategy meeting, but his work continued. Colonel Rita Patel, now General Patel, had taken command of the resistance. Under her leadership, the humans had achieved something remarkable. They had built a secret shipyard beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Using salvaged Velanthi technology, captured materials, and desperate innovation, they had constructed a fleet. The ships were crewed by hegemony standards. They were smaller and slower than Velanthi vessels, but they worked. 47 warships waited in the darkness of the deep ocean, ready to rise. General Patel stood in the control center of the underwater base, watching the latest ship complete its final tests. She was 60 now, gray-haired and scarred from a dozen assassination attempts, but her eyes were sharp and her mind was sharper. "Report from Captain Cole," her aide announced. "The Alliance is ready. 15 species have committed to simultaneous uprising. He's requesting coordination of Earth's liberation with the broader offensive." Patel allowed herself a small smile. "After 5 years, tell him we're ready when he is." The plan they had developed was ambitious. Humanity could not defeat the hegemony alone. No single species could. But if every conquered world rose at once, if every slave turned against their master on the same day, the Velanthi would be overwhelmed. High Counselor Verath had no idea what was coming. The occupation of Earth had become a minor annoyance in his daily reports. The resistance was troublesome but contained. The other conquered species were docile and productive. The hegemony was strong. He was wrong on every count. The retribution returned to Earth's solar system on a cold morning in the 6th year of occupation. Captain Cole, now Admiral Cole, stood on his bridge and looked at his homeworld through the viewscreen. Blue and green, scarred with brown patches where cities had burned. Still alive, still fighting. "Open encrypted channel to General Patel," he ordered. The connection took several minutes to establish through the hegemony's communication grid without detection. When Patel's face appeared, Cole felt tears forming in his eyes. He had been away for 6 years. He had never expected to see Earth again. "Admiral Cole," Patel said, "welcome home." "It's good to be back, General. Are we ready?" "The fleet is armed and waiting. Our ground forces know their targets. The Velanthi have no idea what's coming." Cole nodded. "The Alliance begins their uprising in 48 hours. Earth needs to move at the same moment. Every conquered world attacking at once. The hegemony won't be able to respond to everything." "Understood, we'll coordinate the timing." Patel paused. "Marcus, there's something you should know, the people here. They've been waiting for this, not just to be free. They want blood. They want the Velanthi to suffer like we've suffered." Cole understood. He felt the same way. Every human did. The Velanthi had killed billions of their people. They had destroyed their cities. They had tried to break their spirit. Humans did not forget such things. They could not forgive them. "Then let's give them what they want," he said. The 48 hours passed slowly. Across the galaxy, billions of beings prepared for revolution. Weapons were distributed. Plans were finalized. Communications were tested. Everyone waited for the signal. On Earth, humans stopped their usual resistance activities. The Velanthi noticed the sudden quiet and assumed their latest crackdown had finally worked. They relaxed their patrols. They celebrated their apparent victory. They were celebrating when the signal came. At precisely midnight Universal Time, a single word transmitted across every frequency in hegemony space. "Remember." The galaxy exploded. On Earth, 47 human warships burst from beneath the Atlantic Ocean. They rose through the water, broke the surface, and launched themselves toward space. The Velanthi orbital stations had no warning. The first 3 fell before they could even raise shields. On the ground, millions of humans emerged from hiding. They carried weapons they had built in secret over 6 years. They attacked every Velanthi base, every landing pad, every supply depot. The aliens who had been walking peacefully through conquered cities suddenly found themselves surrounded by enemies. General Patel led the assault on the main Velanthi command center in what had been Washington, D.C. Her troops moved through the shattered streets with precision born from years of practice. They knew every building, every sewer tunnel, every hiding spot. The Velanthi commander of Earth tried to call for reinforcements. He discovered that every communications satellite had been destroyed in the first moments of the attack. He tried to rally his troops. He discovered that most of them were already dead. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. The Korthar rose in their minds, using explosives they had stolen over decades. The Veth sabotaged the ships they had been forced to build. The Mekrani sealed themselves into their engineering sections and turned the station systems against their masters. High Counselor Verath received reports of rebellion from 100 worlds simultaneously. He could not process the information. Such a thing had never happened. Such coordination should have been impossible. How, he demanded of his advisors, how did they organize this? No one had an answer. The hegemony had grown complacent. They had conquered so many species and faced so little resistance that they had stopped watching for threats. They had assumed their victims were broken. Humans had taught the galaxy that no one stays broken forever. The battle for Earth lasted 3 days. By the end, the Velanthi occupation force had been completely destroyed. Not captured, destroyed. The humans took no prisoners. They showed no mercy. They remembered every death, every burned city, every murdered child, and they repaid it all with interest. General Patel stood in the ruins of the enemy command center, surrounded by alien bodies. Her uniform was torn and bloodied. She had not slept in 72 hours, but she was smiling. "Earth is free," she said into a communication device that broadcast to the whole planet. "We are free, but we are not done. The hegemony still exists. They still hold other worlds. They still have power. We will not stop until every species they conquered is free. We will not stop until they know the full price of what they did to us." The cheering could be heard from space. Admiral Cole brought his fleet into Earth orbit. He looked down at his homeworld, free for the first time in 6 years. Then he turned his attention to the stars. The hegemony was vast. Defeating them would take years, perhaps decades, but humanity had proven something today. They had proven that vengeance was patient, and they had proven that vengeance was stronger than any empire. The war for the galaxy had just begun. The war against the Velanthi hegemony lasted 23 years. It was the longest and bloodiest conflict the galaxy had ever seen. Entire star systems were destroyed. Trillions of beings died on both sides, but in the end, the outcome was never really in doubt. Humanity had changed the rules. Before the humans came, galactic warfare followed certain patterns. Species fought for resources or territory. They negotiated when fighting became too costly. They accepted defeat when victory was impossible. These patterns had governed conflict for 10,000 years. Humans did not follow patterns. They did not fight for resources or territory. They fought because the Velanthi had killed 23 crew members on a small ship called the Wanderer. They fought because the Velanthi had burned their cities and murdered their people. They fought because they could not stop until their enemies felt the same pain they had felt. This confused their allies almost as much as it confused their enemies. Admiral Cole commanded the Allied fleet, human ships fighting alongside Korthar, Veth, Mekrani, and a dozen other species. In the 15th year of the war, they had cornered a major Velanthi battle group near a system called Thavar. The enemy was badly damaged and outnumbered. Standard military practice called for accepting their surrender. The Velanthi commander sent a transmission offering to negotiate terms. Cole listened to the message on his flagship's bridge. Around him, officers from 5 different species waited for his response. "Admiral," said Captain Gorvan, now his second in command and the highest-ranking Korthar in the Allied military. "They wish to surrender. Should we accept?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. He was thinking about Earth, about Denver, about the cities that had burned and the people who had died, about Captain Elena Vasquez and her message of peace that had been answered with death. No, he said finally. The Allied officers exchanged uncertain glances. The Macrani commander spoke carefully. Admiral, taking prisoners would allow us to learn their fleet movements. It would also demonstrate that the Alliance is not merely seeking destruction. The Alliance can demonstrate whatever it wants, Cole said. Humanity is seeking destruction. These ships participated in the bombardment of Earth. Their crews watched our cities burn. They will not survive to see another day. He opened communication to his fleet. All human vessels, this is Admiral Cole. The enemy wishes to surrender. Our allies may accept prisoners if they choose. Human ships will not. Destroy them all. The human ships moved forward. The Valanthi, who had expected negotiation, found only fire. The battle was over in less than an hour. Cole's decision was controversial. Among the allied species, some admired human dedication. Others feared it. The Veth ambassador spoke to him privately after the battle. Admiral, I understand your people's anger. The Valanthi wronged you greatly, but there must be limits. If you destroy everyone who surrenders, how are we different from them? Cole turned to face the Veth. He was 65 years old now, gray and worn from decades of war. But his eyes still burned with the same fire that had driven him since the day he watched the Wanderer's final transmission. We are different, he said, because we did not start this. We came to the galaxy with open hands. We offered friendship. The Valanthi answered with murder. Every death we have caused is a response to what they did first. And until they feel the same loss we felt, we will not stop. The Veth ambassador did not argue further. None of the allies ever did. They had seen what humanity could do. They had watched human soldiers march into certain death with smiles on their faces. They had witnessed human engineers work for months without rest to build weapons of terrible power. They knew that there was something in the human spirit that could not be reasoned with once it was truly awakened. The war continued. Year after year, the Alliance pushed deeper into hegemony space. They liberated world after world. They freed species that had been enslaved for centuries, and they destroyed every Valanthi force they encountered. By the 20th year, the hegemony controlled only their home system. Their empire had crumbled. Their fleets were gone. Their conquered worlds had turned against them. They were surrounded by enemies who had all learned the same lesson from humanity. Vengeance is patient, and vengeance is powerful. High Counselor Verath was long dead by then. He had been killed in an assassination by a human infiltrator in the 8th year of the war. His successors had tried everything: negotiation, bribery, threats, desperate final offensives. Nothing worked. The Alliance kept coming. The final battle took place in orbit above the Valanthi homeworld. The Allied fleet numbered over 3,000 ships from 27 species. The Valanthi had less than 100 vessels remaining. It was not even a contest. General Patel, now 85 years old, had traveled from Earth for this moment. She stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the Valanthi world on the viewscreen. It was a beautiful planet, blue oceans, green continents, white clouds, just like Earth had been before the invasion. "Ma'am," her communications officer said, "the Valanthi are transmitting a surrender offer. They're asking for terms." Patel was quiet for a long time. She thought about Admiral Stone, who had led humanity through the darkest days of the occupation. She thought about Captain Webb and the other pilots who had charged into certain death to buy their planet precious hours. She thought about the millions who had fought and died in the resistance, whose names would never be recorded in any history book. "What terms are they offering?" she asked. "They will disarm completely. They will release all remaining slaves. They will pay reparations. They will surrender their leaders for trial. In exchange, they ask that we spare their civilian population." The bridge was silent. Every officer present knew what had happened to Earth's civilian population. They knew about Denver and Beijing and Lagos and the 100 other cities that had been burned to ash. "Admiral Cole," Patel said into the fleet-wide communication channel. "What is humanity's answer?" Cole's voice came back immediately. "The same answer they gave us when the Wanderer asked for peace." The bombardment lasted for 2 days. When it ended, the Velanthi homeworld was a dead rock. Their civilization, which had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, was gone. Their cities, their art, their history, their people, all destroyed. The Alliance did not celebrate. Most of the alien species watched in silence as the human fleet completed its work. They had fought alongside humanity for over 2 decades. They had grown to respect human determination and human courage. But they had also learned to fear human vengeance. The war was over. The Velanthi were extinct. Humanity had achieved its goal. In the years that followed, the galaxy rebuilt itself. The former hegemony space became a federation of free species, with humans playing a leading but not dominating role. Trade routes reopened. Civilizations that had been suppressed for centuries began to flourish again. Humanity changed too. The fire of vengeance that had burned for so long gradually cooled into something else, pride in what they had accomplished, and a deep determination that no one would ever make them victims again. Earth was rebuilt. Cities rose from the ashes. New generations were born who had never known occupation. They learned about the war in schools, studied the heroes who had fought for their freedom, and swore oaths to remember what had happened. General Rita Patel died peacefully at the age of 92, surrounded by her family and grandchildren. Her funeral was attended by representatives from every species in the Federation. She was buried beside Admiral Stone in the Memorial Gardens in what had once been Washington, D.C. Admiral Marcus Cole lived even longer. He spent his final years traveling the Federation, visiting the worlds he had helped free, and telling stories about the war. He died at 103, aboard a ship named the Wanderer II, while watching the stars he had fought so hard to reach. His final words were recorded and transmitted across the galaxy. "We came in peace and they answered with war. We showed them what happens when you underestimate human vengeance. Let this be a lesson to anyone who forgets it. Never harm humanity. Never take what we love. Never assume we will bow, because we will fight. We will survive. And we will remember. Forever." The message became a monument in human space. It was carved into stone on Earth, engraved on plaques aboard warships, taught to children from their earliest days. It was humanity's promise to itself and to the galaxy. 500 years later, a new alien species encountered humanity for the first time. They were the Thrani, from a distant galaxy, and they came with mighty fleets and plans for conquest. They had never heard of the Velanthi. They did not know what had happened to those who underestimated human vengeance. The Thrani ambassador stood before the Human Federation Council and delivered demands for submission. He spoke of the power of his empire, the invincibility of his fleets, the inevitable victory of his species. The human representative listened politely. When the ambassador finished, she smiled and spoke a single word. "Remember." The Thrani did not understand, but they would learn. Everyone eventually learned. Human vengeance was patient, human vengeance was powerful, and human vengeance never, ever forgot. This was the legacy of Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew. This was the lesson of the Wanderer. This was what happened when aliens underestimated humanity. And the stars themselves bore witness to the truth. Some enemies are better left unmade.